Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode here on European Confessions. The following story that you're going to be listening to, it was sent to me by one of our sisters. The message reads like this: Hello, Brother Nasha, how are you? Can you please post my own story as hidden identity? I know that there are people that are going to blame me out there, but let me tell you one thing about me. I do not remember before I was created, there was no one who came to me with an application form asking me if I was giving my full consent if I wanted to be created or if I did not want to be created. So if you are going to blame me, know that God was the one who placed me in this situation. Like I was told by this other prophet that God, when he created you, he said that you, unfortunately, you can never have the joy of having a child. So what is that? How can you create a woman, then you just say that this woman will never experience the joy of giving birth? So you should blame God, because if I was God, I will make sure that when I create a woman, I would only allow a woman to be born, a woman who will be able to conceive, because isn't this what we are born to do? To conceive. But yet God cursed me with this curse of not being able to conceive. I am a barren woman, and my barrenness is the thing that led me into becoming a ritualist. So what happened to me was that when I was dating this other man, when I was still in high school, honestly, I thought that I had fallen pregnant for that man. So this man, I did not know that he was a married man. So the moment that I found out that I had not seen my periods for 2 months, after I had skipped my periods, that was when I told him, and he said that he wanted to make me his wife. So he said that I should look for an accommodation, because I was scared of my dad, knowing that if he was going to find out that I had fallen pregnant, my dad was going to beat me up. So the guy made me to look for an accommodation, and I got a room, and I started staying at that place, and he would come and we will be staying as husband and wife. But later on I discovered that this man, he was a married man, and after the 2 months I saw that I had gone on my periods. This man, he then said that, so you are a liar, you tricked me into thinking that you are pregnant so that I can feel sorry for you. That man, he hated me a lot. So there was a day when the wife came and she beat me up so hard, and I said that it is time for me to move on with my life. After that, I then started to date this other man who was a security guard. This man, he just met me when I was just moving around, not knowing what I wanted to do with my life. He said that he was in love with me, and I accepted, and I started staying with that security guard. But this was like the biggest mistake of my life, because he was quite an abusive man who used to beat me up, a jealous man who thought that because I was very young, then this meant that I would be sleeping around with any man that wanted to sleep with me. So I ran away from that man, and I struggled a lot until I met my husband, my third husband, the man that I ended up sacrificing. And this gives me a lot of sleepless nights, because when I think of how much he was quite a good man, a man who rescued me, a man who treated me like I was a princess, yet he was the man that I was told that I had to sacrifice. And this is the reason as to why I have become an alcoholic. For if I do not drink alcohol, if I am sober, then I'll start to reason, then I'll start to think about a lot of things, and I'll ask myself a lot of questions like, so if I did all of these rituals to enjoy life, am I enjoying life? Why am I alone? Why did I sacrifice the man that I loved with all of my heart? So I prefer that each and every time when I feel like I am about to get sober, then I grab a bottle of wine, then I'll start to drink until I am drunk. So whilst I was staying with that man, because he was such a good man, that was when I started to go to a lot of white garment prophets. I visited this other prophet who was honest enough with me, and he said that I can see that God has cursed you. God cursed you even before you were born, and God said that you will never be able to have any offspring. So just go back to your husband and just enjoy life. But this man then said, but there is another way, a way to turn God's will. If you want, you can go to some traditional healers that will be able to turn around God's will. So I started to go to a lot of healers because I just wanted to give my husband, my good husband, a child. I then went to this other traditional healer. She was a woman who assisted me. So she said that in the spiritual realm, yes, she had been told the same thing that the prophet had been told in the spiritual realm, that God had cursed me even before I was born. So she said, this is quite unfortunate and unfair, but I'm going to see what I can do. I'm going to have a conversation with my ancestors. So go and sleep, my daughter. Tomorrow we are going to continue. So the next morning I was called again into a consultation room, and she said that even her ancestors had felt so sorry for me and had felt that everything that had been done, it was quite unfair. So her ancestors had said that I should be given a snake. This in their family, they have these snakes that they use to make money that brings them good fortune. So her ancestors, feeling sorry for me, had decided that it is far much better that at least I have some good luck, even though if I won't be able to have a child in my life. So I was given a snake. At that time when I was given this snake, it was quite a very small. So that healer then told me that I had to choose one that I was going to dedicate. So when she said dedicate, I never thought that it also meant that I was going to sacrifice this person that I would have dedicated to her altar. So I took that snake back to Harare, where I was staying with my husband. So this woman had said that when you have noticed that this snake has grown bigger, I want you to bring this snake here. So by the time that I returned with that snake to that traditional healer, this snake was as long as my arm, and that healer was angry and said that, can't you see that this snake is about to die? This snake is starving, and don't you know that I connected you to the heart of this snake? So what happens, Brother Nash, is that if I die, this snake dies. If that snake dies, then I die, because we are connected together. So that healer then said that we had to make a plan as quickly as possible. This snake had to be given some food. I said, what kind of food? She said, blood. And I said, whose blood? And she said, the blood of your husband. And I said, like, no, I cannot do that. But she reminded me of the oath that I had taken, dedicating my husband to her shrine. So this healer then gave me a mirror and gave me a knife and said that all that I had to do was to stab the man that was going to appear in the mirror. And indeed, it was my husband that appeared in the mirror. So when I stabbed my husband, I was then caught up in a vision, and I found myself, I was in that same room that I was staying with my husband back in Harare, and my husband, he was fast asleep. That healer then told me that I had to go and stab my husband as he was sleeping in bed, and I was nervous. But that healer then said, he cannot see you, for we are in the spiritual realm. Go there and stab him, otherwise your snake is going to die, and I won't be able to assist you. I do not want you to die at my compound. What are people going to say? So go, be brave, daughter, go and stab him. So I walked to my bed where my husband was laying, and then I stabbed my husband straight in the stomach. After I had stabbed him, then the blood was flowing out. That traditional healer had a clay pot, and she was filling that clay pot with the blood that was coming out of my husband. And when we saw that my husband had not died, she then said, continue stabbing him. And I then walked and I grabbed him by the neck. You know what we do when we want to slaughter a chicken? Like, you hold it and by the head. You know, when you want to slaughter a chicken, the way that you hold a chicken when you are slaughtering it, that is what I did to my husband. I was covering his face, and then I started to cut him in the neck area. And after I had cut his neck open, that was when my husband passed away. So me and that woman, we then returned back to her village, and I found myself again sitting in her consulting room, and I saw that she had a clay pot that was full of blood. When I looked at myself, I was so scared. I wanted to run away because my hands were full of blood, my clothes were full of blood, and even the knife, the blade was full of blood. Then that healer told me not to be afraid, for the police were not going to come after me, for this had been done in the spiritual world. No one was going to see the physical damage that had happened to my husband. No one was going to notice that this is what my husband was like, because they would only be seeing his shadow. So that healer then called my snake. This snake had coiled itself around my leg. Then it uncoiled itself and it went towards that clay pot that was full of blood. Then it started drinking and drinking and drinking until it had finished all the blood. That healer then told me to quickly return to Harare to attend my husband's funeral. When I arrived, my husband told me that he was so sick. So I called his relatives because I wanted them to be there to witness him dying. I called them. Then we went to the hospital. The next morning, when we went for the early morning visitation, then my husband, we were told that he had since passed away. I was happy. And after that, when my husband had passed away, I then returned back to my parents' house, and I pretended as if I was mourning for my late husband. And I then returned back to that traditional healer's place. So she gave me a suitcase, and in that suitcase there was that snake. It was physically in there. Even when I was traveling from her village returning back to Harare, people that I was with on the bus, they didn't even realize that in my suitcase there was a snake, a ritual snake that was there, that was ready to vomit blood. When I returned back to my parents' house, what I would do is that late at night, I would then walk to this other area that is called the Mbudzi graveyards, that is there in Harare. Then I would go to my husband's grave, and I will place that snake on top of his grave. Then this snake, it will start to dig a hole until it would have reached my husband's coffin. Then it will start to eat up the flesh and to drink up the blood that was still remaining. Then it will come up again, and I will take it and return back to my parents' house. The healer told me that I had to quickly look for another accommodation. So I looked for another place to stay, and that snake, it vomits money. It started vomiting a lot of money. When I would wake up, I would see like huge piles of money, and I started using that money. So here I am